Hi.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer.
And I'm Michelle, and I teach in Indianapolis.
I teach right outside Indianapolis at Greenfield, Indiana, so actually about 25 minutes from you.
You're pretty close.
Yeah.
You're pretty
Very
close.
cool.
So I had a chance to read your chapter.
Yes.
And I loved the way that it was written because it kind of just told a story.
Right, yeah.
So that was important to me. You just kind of drew me into the story.
Oh,
But do you
good.
mind kind of giving me a little bit of background about Greenfield Central? Is it Central High School?
Greenfield Central High School, yeah. I actually work at Catamount, so it's a separate placement. It's an alternative placement for students with different varying disabilities. Typically, the most prevalent is emotional disabilities. We have students that have been kicked out of school for different reasons, but that still, as all kids, deserve an education. So they come to me, and we kind of we don't throw academics to the wayside, but we do. They do take a back seat to emotional and behavioral intelligence. So we spend a lot of time doing some restorative practices and a lot of mindfulness classes. This is actually, I can't tell you much about Greenfield. I've only been there since August.
Okay.
We moved from up north. Everything that I did was up at Manchester High School, up north, kind of around the Warsaw, Fort Wayne area.
Okay, and you did the same thing. Did you implement the same type of program there?
Well, there I was actually, and you'll learn, well, you read about it in the chapter, but I had kind of a different start there. I was working, I was taking care of the Friday night school, which is like a 3-hour detention. And I was sitting there week after week and seeing the same characters flying in every day on my list, pretending to work or staring at a wall or sneaking their phone on the table like we don't know that they're doing. And I just said, this is absurd. And prior to that, I actually at that time had a yoga studio. So I was a yoga mindfulness instructor, and I was doing these things in the community and at the library with kids, and I just thought, this is not working. So we kind of implemented a mindfulness program instead of detention.
Which I loved.
Yeah.
How long were you at the school before you came up with this idea?
Not very long. So I actually took a strange route to education. I started out teaching. I thought, I always wanted to teach, and so, but my first thought was early childhood, and so I was doing that. And I had a 2-year-old son at the time, and I remember coming home at the end of one day, and he wanted me to read a story to him, and I said, oh, I cannot read you. I just don't want to read another children's book. I just don't even want to see another kid right now. And so I decided I was either going to be a really good mom and a bad teacher, and for what I thought.
Sure.
I was going to be a good teacher and a bad mom, or just mediocre at both. And so none of those options seemed good enough for me. So I stepped away from education.
Okay.
And I got a job at the local university there in the town that I was living in. Still teaching, but just kind of in a different way.
Right.
And got into mindfulness and yoga, and I always say that if I would have known the skills that I know now through mindfulness and yoga, I'd be on like year 15 or 16 of teaching. But I knew that I had to get this in the hands of students. So I went back and got my special ed degree, and was actually working as an IA or a paraprofessional, an aide in the classroom at Manchester first, and then took over a study hall while I was finishing my degree.
Okay.
So kind of a strange route, but long way to answer your question.
No, that's okay. And I was really curious because it sounded like when you went to propose this idea to the principal, you had this long, thought-out process.
I did.
And then what happened?
I did not even get to the list. He said, people in the community are talking about your yoga class. I see how you are with the kids. You have something to offer that other teachers don't right now, and let's do it. Whatever you've got to do, let's do it. And so it took off from there. I went home, I did research, I came up with all these like handouts, I had a PowerPoint thing, PowerPoint all ready to go, and I sat down, I was like, all right. He's like, what do you want to talk about? And I said, well, I'm sitting in detention every day, and it's just not, it's not working. And he goes, I know. And he said, what do you propose? And I said, well, I'd like to do mindfulness. He goes, do it.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So he added it to like the school safety plan, and it's in the handbook now. And when I left, it did not go over well telling them that I was leaving, but they found somebody who also teaches yoga in the area who actually, as things work out, moved to the area the same week that I said I was leaving. So I was the only yoga instructor in town, and a yoga instructor actually moved to town the week that I was leaving. So
it's the universe.
I know, provides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned in the book that you chose a quiet place. Why did you choose that?
Actually, I just happened to, I went probably through about 50 different reviews and books on Amazon, and something about the way that it was done in kindness. Amy Saltzman talks so much about everything is with curiosity and kindness, and as we know, that's what mindfulness, that's the key component of mindfulness, but hers was really rooted in that, and so that spoke to me a lot. And it's kind of moved from there, and I've actually written my own curriculum now for Stop, Breathe, Be, but she got my feet wet for sure.
Yeah.
For a more curriculum-based approach to it.
And I think it's important, at least I agree with you, when you said earlier that the teachers need to have a personal practice.
Absolutely, yeah.
Before they learn how to, they go in and teach it.
Right, yeah, that's really important. Because so often we hear this mindfulness, and like I told you earlier, it's such a buzzword these days that we want to get in there and we want to just jump in and start breathing, when as teachers sometimes we don't even model that, or technology is not working, and so we get grumpy, and in fact I think I just mentioned that in the story that technology wasn't working, and I was getting really frustrated, and so I don't even know what I did. I probably shut my screen and took a sigh or something, and one of my students came up to me and said, "You need to take a deep breath. You're getting frustrated." And I said, "You know what? I am getting frustrated." And he said, he goes, "I love that you named your feeling."
Oh my gosh.
And he said, "Why don't you take a deep breath?" So I was like, and he goes, "Mm-mm." He did just like that. He said, "Mm-mm." He goes, "Deeper, from the belly, like you taught us." Oh. And so I had tears in my eyes, and I was like, "You're listening." And this is a kid who, you know, I'd been told from the day I stepped foot in the classroom that was a lifer in this classroom, which I said, and when I accepted the job, I said, I will take this job if my goal is to get these kids back in a classroom with their peers. Yeah. And so I am happy to say that he is starting the transition back into school now. So
that's beautiful.
Yay. Yeah.
Wow. So one last question.
Sure.
If you had walked into that principal's office, or if anybody else is thinking about implementing such a curriculum,
sure,
and you walk in and you are met with skepticism, what suggestions would you give?
Don't give up. Honestly,
Like that.
If you believe in something and you believe in what you're doing, don't stop at no. Find a different way to ask, or I don't want to say go above that person, but find a different way to ask, find a different way to approach it. And if it's still no, then model that, and then come to them and say, look, this is what I'm doing, and this is what's happening in my classroom. And you know, they can only ignore that for so long. And if they ignore that for that much, that long, and they're so opposed to something that you believe so strongly in, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but, you know.
Proof's in the pudding.
Right. I love that. Yeah, for sure.
Hello, Jennifer.
Tell me a little bit about, so you said you're from Indy, right? Indianapolis, Indiana. I guess not everyone calls it Indy.
Yes.
But can you please pronounce the name of the school that you work at?
Absolutely. It's Brebeuf Jesuit Preparatory School.
Brebeuf Jesuit.
Yes, it's French, so it would be difficult to pronounce.
And you teach French, yes?
I teach French. Oui. And I have been there for, I think it's my 17th or 18th year.
Oh, wow.
So I started teaching French there and have been teaching French, continue to teach French. And it's just been in the past couple years that we've implemented a 4-credit mindfulness course that I've been teaching.
Very cool. How did that happen? How did what started the whole thing?
It's a great question. I think being a college prep school, we've seen a lot of student stress, anxiety, and depression, with all of the pressure for kids to get into college, and they feel like not only do they need to have above a 4.0 now, they have to be involved in extracurriculars, they need to be doing community service, and it's they're overwhelmed. And so we decided to do a student cultural survey, like a school-wide survey. And one of the questions on the survey was, how stressed do you feel? And about 82% of the students came back and said that they felt very stressed every day. So taking that information, the school couldn't ignore.
Right.
And they wanted to do something. So they started with actually a DBT curriculum for all of the freshmen. And at that point in time, we had an assistant principal who knew all about the mindfulness movement.
Very cool.
And I spoke to her and I said, I am really interested in this and I'd like to give it a go. So we put out publicity, we talked to the students, kind of told them what it was about, because they didn't know the term mindfulness.
Right.
And we offered our first classes in 2018, fall.
Okay. So you said that you did the survey and kids came back. 80% said they're stressed.
Yeah.
What if you would have heard, because I hear this, I hear when kids say, oh, I'm so stressed. I sometimes hear teachers say, kid, you don't even know what stress is. So what made you guys take that, because stress is stress. Their stress is real to them. So what made you guys take that and run with it, really?
I think that we were seeing it. The teachers were reporting the stress. Students were ending up in the hospital.
Wow.
For short stints and longer stints. So that was a concern.
Did you receive any backlash from parents? Did you have any parents say, oh, mindfulness, that's a religion, or DBT, oh, now you're putting my kids into therapy?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Actually, no. A lot of the parents at the school work in fields where mindfulness is used.
Okay.
And with companies where mindfulness has been introduced. So it was pretty supportive, although the kids were kind of like, yeah, I'll just take it, it sounds all right. But for the first year, I'm trying to think, we had 2 Mindfulness 1 courses the first semester and 2 the second semester.
Okay.
And out of all of the students that were enrolled in those classes, 16 out of 20 moved on to Mindfulness 2 the following year. So we still have 4 classes. We have the first year it was all Mindfulness 1, and then this past year we've had 1 Mindfulness 2 and 3 Mindfulness 1.
Okay. So why you? Why are you the mindfulness teacher? What, do you have a background in mindfulness? Did you first practice mindfulness yourself? Or were you just like, I need mindfulness, so I want to teach the class so I can learn it too?
Right. And in public school, that's where I was getting to the point where I was becoming burned out and thinking, okay, I'm not bringing my true self to the table. And so I started to pick up on, YouTube videos of meditation and relaxation. I thought, hey, this is kind of working.
Yeah.
So I kind of practiced a little bit here, a little bit there. And one day at school, I noticed my kids came in. This was in the public school, and they came back from lunch, and they were crazy off the walls that day because it was a Friday.
I love that part in your chapter.
Yeah. And so I just said, okay, I understand you're stressed. I get it. You have a lot of energy. How about if we just take a few moments just to sit quietly? How does that feel? You need to give yourselves a break, and kind of turned it to like, you guys need this.
Yeah.
I know you do.
Like you're doing them a favor.
I'm doing them a favor, exactly. And they all went for it. And so I just put on some music, and I just told them I didn't, use any religious terminology. I just said, this is a brain break, and we're just going to listen to some music. And we did that for about 5 minutes. They were all quiet, and I was like, this is really good.
Yeah.
Music goes off, and I'm hoping that the effect lasts. And I was shocked at the difference in the kids. They all sat quietly, and we were able to continue with the lesson. And even when after the lesson part was over, they do some sort of a group work or partner work. They even did that in French, which was amazing, but they did it resourcefully.
Yeah.
You could really tell that they were focused on the task.
Sure.
So at that point I thought, okay, this is something I need to do.
Yeah.
And I earnestly started my own personal practice. And recently I went and did the InBody Academy out in Salt Lake City,
wow.
Utah.
Yeah.
They have a mindfulness for teachers certification, and it's about 250 hours or so.
Okay.
And I did that and got certified by the IMTA.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
So going back to you saying that they came back from lunch and they were a wild bunch.
Oh yeah.
I love that you were mindful enough to notice that they were out of sorts, but then also gave yourself the permission to stray from your lesson plan for a minute, right?
Yeah.
And so what would you say to teachers who are so, you know, as teachers, we tend to be planners, and we
Yes,
tend to
we
have
are.
these beautifully created lesson plans that we have for the day.
Yep.
And sometimes, as you know, they don't always go to plan. So what would you say to teachers who don't give themselves permission to say, oh, my class is out of control right now, but let's keep driving, forging ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of how I used to be. And if you can just give them like 2 or 3 minutes, it doesn't have to be a long time.
Right.
You will find that they settle in, they concentrate, and I actually got more content done just by allowing them to do that, to come into the present moment.
I wrote this down, so I'm pulling up my paper now, but you had a quote in your chapter that said, how my students handle the stress and anxiety of school is as important as the grades they earn.
Absolutely.
And I didn't have a highlighter, but had I had a highlighter, I would have highlighted and starred and underlined and whatever else.
Thanks.
Can you say something to that?
Yeah, a lot of people will ask me, how are the kids doing with respect to their academic grades? Has mindfulness improved that? And my response to that is really, that's not my major goal. That's not their goal.
Right.
The idea is to allow them to be who they are and be the best possible person that they can become through mindfulness and finding that creativity and that passion for learning. And you know what? This is just my thoughts, having a child that has gone through the school. My philosophy was, you know what? You don't need to make straight A's. I want you to be a person that is compassionate, that cares about people, and that's willing to go out there and be a change agent. And I think that's what mindfulness does.
Absolutely. It does. It cultivates empathy. We see that.
Yeah.
And that calm that we need.
Teachers too.
Sister, yes. One last question. Tell me what your favorite lesson is that you teach in the class. Or maybe what lesson the students receive the best.
The best. That would be the easy. Mindful eating. They've never heard of it before.
Yeah.
And to go through, a piece of, a lot of people use raisins. I use chocolate. And I let them choose which percentage of chocolate they want. But they do. They absolutely love it. When they're done, the comments are very interesting because some of the kids will say, I've never eaten a small piece of chocolate that slowly, and I really don't need another piece.
Yeah.
And some of them have gone home to teach their parents, which is really cool.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I am so happy that we were able to meet in person. We've been emailing a little bit, but to meet in real life is amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll do lunch sometime.
Definitely.
For sure. Since we live 25 minutes from each other.
That's true.
Awesome.
Summer.
I'm in.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.